She kissed a powerful Korean man in front of hundreds of people. 30 seconds later, he collapsed. By morning, she lost her job. By night, her sister disappeared. She couldn't scream. He didn't listen. 30 seconds stood between life and death. One kiss stopped a murder. One lie destroyed her life. What happened next changed everything. The first scream cuts through the orchestra before anyone understands where it comes from. Maryam Adeyemi is mid-step, balancing a tray of champagne flutes through the crowded ballroom when she hears it. Not a scream of fear, but a sharp whisper carried on urgency and intent. Korean. Not the polished soul accent she's used to hearing from wealthy donors. Rougher. Faster. Busan. Make sure he finishes the glass. 30 seconds is enough. Her fingers tighten around the tray. For a moment, the music swells. Laughter rolls across the sapphire room of the Blackstone Hotel in downtown Chicago, and everything feels unreal, like her mind is playing tricks to survive another exhausting shift. Then she hears it again, clearer this time, from behind the marble pillar near the stage. The poison's clean. No smell. No trace. Maryam's heart slams so hard it steals her breath. She shouldn't understand this. She shouldn't know the difference between dialects, shouldn't recognize the cadence of criminal urgency. But her father taught her Korean when she was a teenager in Lagos, long before he died, long before she followed her mother to America, long before this night. Busan dialect was his favorite. He said it sounded honest, rough, real. She peeks around the pillar. A man stands with his back to her, tall, broad-shouldered, hair slicked back neatly, dressed in a white tuxedo that screams power without begging for attention. Park Dae-hyun. She doesn't know his name, but she knows his face. Everyone in Chicago's elite circles does. Donor, investor, quiet kingmaker, the white tiger. He lifts a champagne flute. Maryam's body moves before her brain finishes panicking. She steps forward, tray tilting dangerously, and the world seems to narrow into a tunnel. Security eyes her immediately. She ignores them. She drops the tray. Glass shatters, champagne spills, gasps ripple outward, and she grabs the lapel of Park Dae-hyun's jacket. What the? She doesn't let him finish. She presses her mouth to his. It's not soft. It's not romantic. It's desperate, clumsy, full of panic and purpose. The champagne spills between them, soaking his collar, dripping down his chest. Her lips barely touch his before she pulls back and shoves the glass from his hand. Time explodes. People shout. Security lunges. Cameras flash. Dae-hyun stiffens, his breath hitching, his face twisting, not in shock, but pain. His hand flies to his throat. His knees buckle. Maryam is dragged backward, fingers clawing at her arms. Your drink! She screams, twisting against the guards. It's poisoned! 30 seconds! They said 30 seconds! She switches languages without thinking, her voice breaking into Busan dialect. The glass! He can't swallow it! They're behind the pillar! Dae-hyun's eyes meet hers across the chaos, dark, sharp, burning with confusion and fury. Then he collapses. Everything after that moves too fast. Sirens, police questions, shouting hotel staff. Maryam sits on the marble floor with bruises forming on her wrists, her uniform soaked in champagne and sweat. No one listens when she tries to explain. No one cares that she understood the language of the men who fled. The story is already written. Waitress assaults donor at charity gala. By morning, she is fired. By noon, every hospitality agency in Chicago has her name flagged. By night, her face is everywhere online. Cropped, frozen mid-kiss, framed as a scandal. She doesn't sleep. Her phone buzzes non-stop until it suddenly doesn't. Her sister Aisha's messages stop coming through. Maryam tells herself it's just bad reception, just exhaustion, just fear spiraling out of control. At 2:17 a.m., a black van pulls up outside her apartment. She doesn't hear it until the door crashes inward. Hands grab her. A hood drops over her head. Zip ties bite into her wrists. She screams once before a calm male voice cuts through the darkness, speaking Korean. Easy. If we wanted her dead, she wouldn't be screaming. The van smells like leather and gun oil. Maryam's heart hammers so violently she feels dizzy. She thinks of Aisha. She thinks of her mother's prayers. She thinks she has made the worst mistake of her life. When the hood comes off, she's standing in a penthouse that looks like it belongs to a magazine spread. Floor-to-ceiling windows, steel and glass, the Chicago River glowing beneath city lights. Men in black suits line the walls like statues. Park Dae-hyun stands at the center. He looks worse than she imagined. Pale, eyes sunken. a faint tremor in his hand as he grips the back of a chair. But his gaze is sharp enough to cut. He studies her slowly. So, he says in accented English, voice low and controlled, "You kissed me in front of 500 people, and now I'm alive." Maryam swallows hard. "I didn't poison you." A muscle jumps in his jaw. "My doctors disagree." She laughs once, sharp and broken. "Your doctors weren't standing behind the pillar?" Silence drops heavy. He steps closer. She refuses to step back. "You expect me to believe a waitress risked her life for me?" he says. "Out of kindness?" "No," she snaps. "I expected you to listen." She switches to Busan dialect without warning, repeats the assassin's words exactly. Same rhythm, same slang, same careless confidence. The room shifts. Dae-hyun's eyes narrow, not with rage, but calculation. "Again," he says quietly. She repeats it. When she finishes, his hand trembles harder. He looks away, breathing through pain and realization. "No outsider speaks like that," one of the men murmurs. Dae-hyun raises a hand for silence. "She stays," he says. Maryam exhales, legs weak, but relief doesn't last. Days blur together inside the penthouse. Guards everywhere, doors that don't lock from the inside. Dae-hyun watches her constantly, testing, provoking, waiting for her to slip. Their clashes are quiet, but vicious. He values restraint. She values honesty. He sees emotion as weakness. She sees silence as cruelty. "You don't bow," he tells her one night. "I don't belong to you," she replies. He almost smiles. At night, the poison leaves him shaking, sweat soaking the sheets. She notices before anyone else. Brings water, calls the doctor. Doesn't touch him unless he asks. Trust creeps in reluctantly, until Aisha's phone goes dark. Maryam confronts Dae-hyun, panic clawing up her throat. He dismisses it at first. Then a video arrives on his private line. Aisha, tied to a chair, crying. A familiar voice off camera, amused and cruel. "Open the gates tomorrow night," Han Min-jae says softly. "Or your sister drowns." Maryam's world fractures. She looks at Dae-hyun, terror and betrayal colliding in her chest. He studies her face, already guessing. "If you betray me," he says quietly, "you die," she whispers back, tears spilling freely now. "If I don't..." She does. Outside, the river flows dark and endless beneath the city lights, and Maryam realizes the truth with crushing clarity. No choice she makes tonight will leave her innocent. And somewhere in the city, someone is counting down again. Maryam doesn't sleep. She sits on the edge of the bed in the guest room that feels more like a holding cell dressed in luxury, her hands locked together so tightly her knuckles ache. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees Aisha's face on the screen, tear-streaked, terrified, trying to be brave the way she always does. Her little sister has never liked crying in front of people. She hates feeling like a burden. Seeing her tied to a chair, mouth trembling, breaks something deep inside Maryam's chest. By dawn, her eyes burn, but her mind is clear in the worst possible way. She knows exactly what she has to do. The penthouse wakes slowly. Guards rotate shifts. Phones buzz. The city outside moves on, uncaring. Dae-hyun emerges from his bedroom near noon, freshly dressed, posture rigid, as if pain is an inconvenience rather than something eating him alive. His gaze flicks to Maryam immediately. It always does now, as if he's learned she's the first sign of danger or truth. "You didn't sleep," he says. She shrugs. "Neither did you." A corner of his mouth tightens. "You're watching me too closely." "You almost died," she snaps. "Forgive me for noticing." Silence stretches. It's different now. Heavier, loaded with things neither of them is saying. He pours himself tea, hands steady despite the tension coiled in his shoulders. "You're afraid," he says calmly. She lets out a bitter laugh. "Congratulations." He sets the cup down. "Tell me why." Her chest tightens. For a second, she almost tells him everything. Almost begs. Almost trusts him completely. Then she remembers Min-jae's voice, soft and amused, promising her sister's death. "I just want to go home," she says instead. Dae-hyun studies her, eyes darkening. "There is no home anymore. You know that." The words slice clean and precise. She turns away before he can see the tears. That evening, the rain starts. Chicago storms are different from the ones back home. Colder, heavier, more relentless. The city glistens under streetlights as Dae-hyun's men prepare quietly. Weapons are checked. Orders murmured in Korean. Maryam watches from the glass wall, heart pounding so loud she's sure someone will hear it. At 9:47 p.m., her phone vibrates. One message. One location pin. The docks. She feels sick. Dae-hyun approaches her slowly, his presence heavy behind her. "You're shaking," he says. She turns to face him, and for the first time since she was taken, she lets herself look truly broken. "They have my sister," she whispers. The confession lands like a gunshot. His jaw tightens. For a brief moment, something raw flashes across his face. Recognition, fury, regret. Then the mask snaps back into place. "Min-jae," he says flatly. She nods, tears spilling now. He said I have to open the gates. Just for a few minutes." Dae-hyun's eyes harden. "And you believed him." "I don't have a choice," she cries. "You don't understand. She's all I have. In my culture, family isn't optional. It's not negotiable." He steps closer, voice dropping dangerously low. "And in my world, betrayal is death." They stand inches apart, the air between them vibrating with anger and fear, and something dangerously close to grief. "You taught me to tell the truth," she says hoarsely. "So I don't want to betray you, but I won't let her die." For a long moment he says nothing. Then he exhales slowly. "Do it." Her head snaps up. "What?" "Open the gates," he repeats. "Let him think he's winning." She stares at him, stunned. "You'll die." "No," he says quietly. "He will." The plan unfolds with terrifying precision. Maryam's hands tremble as she types the security override code, every instinct screaming that she's crossing a line she can never uncross. The gates unlock. Somewhere in the building, alarms stay silent. The cameras keep rolling. Min-jae's men move fast. Too fast. Gunfire erupts before Maryam can process what's happening. Shouts echo through concrete corridors. The penthouse lights flicker. Dae-hyun's men close in from every direction, a trap snapping shut. Maryam runs. She doesn't know where she's going, only that Aisha is somewhere out there, and she can't stand still. She dodges through hallways slick with rainwater tracked in from outside, her heart pounding in her ears. She bursts out onto the docks just as chaos explodes into full violence. Shipping containers loom like monsters. Rain lashes down. Gunshots crack the night open. Maryam spots Aisha near the edge of the dock, hands still bound. Min-jae dragging her toward the water with a pistol pressed to her head. "Aisha!" Maryam screams. Her sister's head jerks up. Their eyes meet across the storm. Min-jae laughs. "You opened the gate," he calls out. "Good girl." Maryam runs toward them without thinking. "Stop!" Dae-hyun's voice roars from behind her. She doesn't. A gunshot rings out. Wood splinters inches from her feet. She keeps running, sobbing, begging. Min-jae turns, annoyed. "You should have stayed inside." Dae-hyun appears from the shadows, like something summoned by rage itself. He and Min-jae face each other, rain streaming down their faces. "You were my brother," Dae-hyun says, voice shaking with fury. "And you were blind," Min-jae sneers. "You chose her." The fight is brutal and fast. Fists, gunshots, bodies hitting concrete. Maryam drops to her knees beside Aisha, tearing at the ropes, hands slippery with rain and blood. Another shot. Min-jae staggers, eyes wide in disbelief. Dae-hyun stands over him, gun raised, breathing hard. "This ends now," he says. The shot echoes across the water. Min-jae collapses. Silence crashes down just as hard as the gunfire did moments before. Maryam holds Aisha, sobbing into her hair, whispering prayers over and over. Dae-hyun watches from a distance, rain washing blood from his hands, his expression unreadable. By the time the ambulances arrive, the night feels unreal, like a memory already fading. In the hospital, fluorescent lights hum softly. Maryam sits beside Dae-hyun's bed this time, roles reversed. His arm is bandaged, his face is bruised. But his eyes are open. "You stayed," he murmurs. She nods. "I told you, family isn't negotiable." A long silence settles between them, not empty, but heavy with everything they've survived. "I won't cage you," he says finally. "You can leave when this is over." Maryam looks at him, then at Aisha sleeping safely across the room, then back at the man who nearly died twice in her presence. "I'm not staying because I'm trapped," she says softly. "I'm staying because I choose to." Outside, dawn creeps over the city, pale and uncertain. And for the first time since the night of the gala, the countdown finally stops. The morning light creeps through the hospital blinds in thin, pale lines, and Maryam watches it touch Dae-hyun's face before it reaches hers. He looks different in daylight, less like a myth, More like a man who has survived something he never planned to feel. Aisha stirs on the couch nearby, her breathing uneven but peaceful. Maryam doesn't let herself relax yet. Peace has been temporary too many times. Dae-hyun opens his eyes slowly. Pain flickers across his expression before discipline smothers it. He turns his head just enough to find Maryam sitting there. "You're still here," he says. She exhales. "You sound surprised." "I'm used to people leaving when the danger is over." She looks at him carefully. "Is it over?" A faint smile touches his lips. "For tonight." That answer should scare her more than it does. Doctors come and go. Guards rotate quietly. Phones buzz with updates she doesn't fully understand. Names she's never heard. Power shifting in places she can't see. Dae-hyun speaks softly into Korean, issuing instructions without raising his voice. Even wounded, even exposed, he commands gravity. Later, when the room empties, she finally asks the question that's been sitting heavy in her chest. "What happens to us now?" He studies the ceiling for a moment. "You go back to your life." She laughs, sharp and hollow. "What life?" His gaze shifts to her, steady. "I will make sure you're safe, your sister too. Money, new work, new place. No more shadows. And you?" she asks quietly. "I return to mine." The words land wrong. Too clean, too distant. "That's it," she says. "After everything?" "Maryam," he says carefully, "you survived because you don't belong in my world." She stands abruptly, anger flaring. "You don't get to decide that." Silence stretches between them again, thicker than before. Aisha wakes fully that afternoon. She clings to Maryam, crying softly, whispering prayers. Dae-hyun watches from a respectful distance, something unreadable in his eyes. "Is he the bad man?" Aisha asks quietly, nodding toward him. Maryam hesitates. "No, he's complicated." Dae-hyun almost smiles. They are discharged under heavy security. Instead of returning to the penthouse, Dae-hyun moves them to a smaller residence on the outskirts of the city. Quieter, fewer guards, less obvious. It feels intentional, like a test. Maryam notices everything. The way he removes his shoes at the door, precise and habitual. The way he pauses when she prays, never interrupting. The way he watches Aisha struggle with stairs and silently orders a ramp installed without mentioning it. Cultural differences surface constantly. Maryam cooks jollof rice and insists everyone eat together. Dae-hyun prefers quiet meals, structured, minimal conversation. At first it's tense, then it becomes awkward, then strangely, normal. One night over dinner, Aisha asks him, "Why do you never laugh?" He blinks. "I do." "When?" he thinks. "When something is funny?" She considers this seriously. "Then we should make funny things happen." Maryam nearly chokes, trying not to laugh. Weeks pass. The city forgets the gala scandal. New headlines replace old ones. Dae-hyun's enemies either disappear or fall into line. Min-jae's name is never spoken again. Maryam tries to rebuild. She applies for jobs under a different name. Most don't call back. A few do. She turns them down anyway. Something inside her has shifted. She doesn't fit neatly anywhere anymore. One evening, she finds Dae-hyun on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. The air is cold. He doesn't turn when she approaches. "You could have killed me," she says quietly. "The first night." "Yes, but you didn't." "No." "Why?" He exhales slowly. "Because you looked at me like a human being. Not a symbol, not a monster." She leans against the railing beside him. "And now? Now I look at you like a liability," he says, then adds, "and a reminder." "Of what?" "That power doesn't protect you from loneliness." Her throat tightens. "I'm not asking you to save me," she says. "I'm asking you not to push me away because it's easier." He turns to her then, eyes dark and searching. "You don't know what staying costs." She meets his gaze without flinching. "I stayed when I thought it would kill me." Something breaks in his expression. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like a wall cracking under pressure. The threat doesn't come with warning. It arrives as a message. Anonymous. Brief. Precise. Before we go any further, if this story is pulling you in, if you feel connected to these moments, thank you for staying with it. Stories like this are shared for people who feel deeply, just like you. If you'd like to keep discovering stories that cross cultures and touch real emotions, you're always welcome to subscribe. A gentle like helps this story reach someone else who may need it tonight. Now, let's continue. A photo of Maryam leaving a grocery store. A timestamp. Coordinates. Dae-hyun sees it first. He doesn't tell her immediately. Instead, he doubles the guards, changes routes, tightens control. Maryam notices, of course. She always does. "What's happening?" she demands. He hesitates. That alone tells her everything. "Someone's testing you," she says flatly. "To see if you're still weak." "They want leverage," he admits. "And I'm the leverage." "Yes," she laughs bitterly. "So what's the plan? Send me away again?" "No," he says firmly. "This time we end it. The trap is set deliberately." Maryam insists on being part of it. They argue for hours, voices raised, old wounds reopened, cultural clashes flaring hard. "You think bravery is recklessness," he snaps. "And you think control is safety," she fires back. It's not. In the end, he gives in. Not because she wins the argument, but because he realizes she won't survive being caged again. The meeting happens in an abandoned warehouse near the old rail lines. Maryam walks in visibly, deliberately exposed. Her heart races, but her face stays calm. Dae-hyun watches from the shadows, jaw clenched, every instinct screaming at him to pull her back. The men who approach underestimate her. They always do. When the ambush springs, it's fast and brutal. Dae-hyun's men close in, shots fired, screams, chaos contained quickly. Maryam stands frozen until it's over, then exhales shakily. Dae-hyun strides to her, gripping her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" She shakes her head. Then, unexpectedly, she laughs, not hysterical. Relieved. "I'm still here," she says. He pulls her into an embrace before he can stop himself. For a second, neither of them breathes. Later, as dawn breaks again, they sit side by side on the floor, backs against the wall, exhaustion heavy between them. "This doesn't end," he says quietly. "My world never stops hunting." She nods. "Neither does mine. Poverty, fear, displacement. We just dress it differently." He looks at her then, really looks. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," she replies softly, "that choosing you doesn't mean choosing danger. It means choosing honesty." Silence settles, not empty this time. Outside, the city wakes again, and somewhere deep inside both of them, a new truth takes root. Fragile, dangerous, impossible to undo. Staying is no longer an accident. It's a decision. Morning comes quietly, the kind of quiet that only exists after violence has burned itself out. Maryam wakes in a stiff hospital chair with her neck aching and her throat dry. For a split second, she panics, reaching blindly for Aisha, until she feels a warm hand wrapped around her wrist. Her sister is there, curled up on the narrow couch, breathing evenly, color back in her face. The relief hits so hard, Maryam has to press her fist to her mouth to keep from sobbing. She looks toward the bed. Park Dae-hyun lies still, monitors blinking steadily beside him. His eyes are closed, his face bruised, jaw shadowed with stubble. He never lets show in public. Without the tailored suits and cold authority, he looks younger, more human, more dangerous in a different way. A doctor enters, checks vitals, nods once. "He'll live," she says. "But he needs rest. And fewer enemies." Maryam almost laughs at that. When the doctor leaves, Dae-hyun opens his eyes. "You're staring," he murmurs. She exhales shakily. "You scared me." His gaze flicks to Aisha, then back to Maryam. "She's safe." "Yes," Maryam says quickly. "She's safe. Because of you." Something tightens in his expression. He turns his head slightly toward the window, watching pale daylight creep over Chicago's skyline. "Min Jae was my first friend in this country," he says quietly. "Before the money, before the men, before the name." Maryam waits. She's learned not to interrupt his silences. "He used to say America would make us powerful," Dae-hyun continues. "That violence here wears nicer clothes. I didn't believe him at first." "You do now," she says. "Yes." They sit with that truth between them. Not heavy, just real. Aisha stirs, blinking awake. When she sees Dae-hyun, she stiffens instinctively. Maryam squeezes her hand. "He's the reason you're here," Maryam says softly. "He saved you." Aisha studies him for a long moment, then nods once. "Thank you," she says, voice quiet but firm. Dae-hyun inclines his head in acknowledgement, respect in the gesture. "You are brave," he tells her. "Both of you." Later that day, the hospital becomes crowded with controlled chaos. Lawyers, doctors, men in suits speaking in low Korean. Maryam feels the familiar sense of being out of place creeping back in. She slips outside to the rooftop garden, needing air. Dae-hyun follows an hour later, slower now, arm in a sling. He stands beside her without speaking, watching traffic crawl below. "You could leave," he says eventually. "Now, before things change again." She laughs softly. "You really don't understand African women, do you?" His eyebrow lifts slightly. "When we survive something together," she says, "we don't pretend it didn't happen. We decide what it means." "And what does this mean?" he asks. She turns to face him fully. "It means I won't be invisible anymore. Not to you. Not to your world." He studies her, something thoughtful settling into his gaze. "You would stand beside a man like me, knowing what I am?" "I know exactly what you are," she says. "I've known since the gala. Power doesn't scare me. Lies do." A faint smile touches his lips. It's brief, dangerous, real. The transition out of the hospital is swift and silent. News outlets report a tragic dockside shootout tied to organized crime. Names are never mentioned. Faces are blurred. The world moves on. Inside the penthouse, everything feels different. The guards treat Maryam differently now. They wait for her to pass. They lower their eyes. Some nod. She notices. Dae-hyun notices her noticing. "You've changed the balance," he says one evening as they share tea at opposite ends of the long table. She shrugs. "You kidnapped me. I returned the favor." He lets out a quiet chuckle before catching himself. "You make my men uncomfortable." "Good," she replies. "They made me uncomfortable first." Aisha settles into the spare room, slowly reclaiming her sense of safety. She cooks Nigerian food one night, jollof rice filling the penthouse with spice and warmth. The guards stare like they've encountered witchcraft. Dae-hyun tastes it cautiously, then reaches for more. "This is dangerous," he says. Maryam smiles. "So is kimchi. You survive." They argue often, about faith, about control, about the cost of power. "You don't need to carry everything alone," she tells him one night. "In my culture, the leader carries everything," he replies. "And in mine," she counters, "leaders who don't listen fall first." The words linger. Threats don't disappear with Min Jae's death. They just change shape. Rival factions test boundaries. Old allies hesitate. Dae-hyun moves carefully, strategically. Maryam watches, learns, questions. "You're not afraid," he says one night as they review security footage together. "I am," she admits. But fear isn't the same as silence. She becomes his translator in more ways than language. Cultural mediator. Moral mirror. When he orders violence, she asks why. When he hesitates, she asks what it costs. One evening, after a brutal meeting, Dae-hyun stands at the window, fists clenched. "If I stop," he says quietly, "they will destroy everything." Maryam steps beside him. "And if you don't, they'll destroy you." He turns to her, eyes searching. "You still want to stay?" She meets his gaze without flinching. "I already stayed." Weeks pass. The city hums. The penthouse breathes differently now, less like a cage, more like a command center, with a conscience slowly being forced into existence. One night, as thunder rolls over the lake, Dae-hyun reaches for Maryam's hand without thinking. She freezes for half a second, then lets him hold it. There is no promise in the gesture. No illusion of salvation. Just two survivors acknowledging the truth. Love doesn't arrive like a miracle. It arrives like a negotiation. And somewhere deep in the city's shadows, eyes are watching, waiting to see if the white tiger has grown soft. Or sharper than ever. The city never announces when it's about to test you again. Maryam senses it before anyone says a word. The guard's posture changes. Phones ring longer than usual. Meetings stretch late into the night. Dae-hyun grows quieter. His silence is sharpening instead of softening. Power has a way of punishing hesitation, and Chicago's underworld is no different. It begins with a message delivered the old way. No text, no call. A black envelope left on the penthouse dining table while everyone is accounted for. No one claims to have brought it in. Dae-hyun opens it slowly. Inside is a single photo. Maryam leans forward despite herself. It shows a woman stepping out of a mosque on the south side, her headscarf loose around her shoulders, mid-laugh as she speaks to someone just out of frame. Her mother. Taken that morning. Maryam's breath leaves her body. "They found your past," Dae-hyun says quietly. Not accusing, not surprised, just stating fact. Aisha stiffens beside her. "They won't stop, will they?" "No," Dae-hyun answers. "They never do." That night, the arguments come back sharper than before. "You said staying was my choice," Maryam snaps, pacing the living room. "You didn't say my family would pay for it," Dae-hyun's jaw tightens. I didn't invite them into this. But you didn't stop it either. Silence stretches, thick and volatile. In my world, he says finally, distance is protection. And in mine, she fires back, distance is abandonment. The words land hard. He looks at her then, really looks, as if seeing the full weight of what he's dragged into his orbit. I can move them, he says. New names, new city. Maryam laughs bitterly. You think my mother survived immigration, racism, grief, and poverty just to disappear quietly because of you. Something in his eyes shifts. Not anger. Respect. You are not afraid of me, he says slowly. I'm afraid of becoming like you, she replies, just as quietly. The next move comes fast. A rival Korean syndicate makes a play, testing his borders, challenging his restraint. A warehouse burns. A warning is sent. Dae-hyun's men wait for the order they know is coming. He doesn't give it. Instead, he calls a meeting, brings elders from different factions together. Americans, Koreans, men who don't trust each other, men who expect blood. Maryam watches from behind the glass as he speaks. Not loudly, not emotionally, but differently. He talks about stability, about profit without chaos, about Chicago being watched more closely than Seoul ever was. He offers alliances instead of threats. Some laugh, some leave. One stays. It's not peace. It's not victory. It's survival with teeth. That night, Dae-hyun finds Maryam on the balcony, wrapped in a shawl, staring at the lake. You changed the way I fight, he says. She doesn't turn. You changed the way I see power. They stand side by side, close, but not touching. Stay, he says. Not a command, not a plea. Just a truth offered. Maryam exhales slowly. I will, but not as your weakness, and not as your shield. He nods. As my equal. Below them, the city keeps moving. Messy, violent, alive. Weeks later, Maryam walks freely through the penthouse, no guards shadowing her steps. She helps Aisha enroll in school again. She visits her mother openly, refuses to hide her faith or her name. When whispers follow her, she lets them. Dae-hyun watches from a distance, learning something no one ever taught him, that power shared is not always power lost. On a quiet night, long after the city settles, he pours 2 cups of tea and hands one to her. In Korea, he says, we believe storms show us the strength of what remains standing. Maryam smiles faintly. In Africa, we believe storms teach us who to stand with. Their cups touch lightly. No vows. No promises. Just an understanding forged in danger and chosen again in calm. Outside, the wind moves across the water, carrying the city's noise away. And for the first time, the future doesn't feel like a countdown. It feels like a decision. If you stayed until the end, thank you. That means this story met you somewhere personal. If you'd like to keep walking through stories like this with us, you're welcome to subscribe. If this story moved you, a like quietly helps it travel to another heart. And if someone you know would feel this story too, feel free to share it. I'd love to know. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. No matter where you are in the world, you're part of this space. And before you go, I pray peace finds you, protection surrounds you, and ease enters every area of your life. May your heart be strong, your worries light, and your path guided. Thank you for being here.